Morning, it's Graham Healy from Rise Up Australia, Brisbane.com. Today, I'm just going to bring you some quick videos, with regarding uh, differentiating who to vote for and why to vote for them in the forthcoming election. Now, today's subject, which will be brief and to the point, is a very important one, and it's been brought up in a video by Senator Rennick. Senator Rennick's, in my opinion, is a financial genius, actually. His background's in finances, and I believe that he's got the blueprint to make Australia great again, to coin a term. And I just want to go over some points now. It's in the video that he put out recently where he's done the very brief assessment. Go onto his website, People First, and you'll see this broken down a little bit more so. But I just thought I'd mention it. Number one, Australia is in serious debt. Doesn't have to be. It never should have been this way, right? But that's all part of the globalistic plan to break down, the prosperity of nations and reduce it down to a common denominator. I call it the global communism plan. Now, you can read into that whatever you like, but basically at the end of the day, I've done the figures here. Australia, just go on australiadebtclock.com, and we're 9.9 trillion in debt. That's overall debt. You go to USA and they're $36 trillion in debt. Now, just to throw a biblical verse in for everyone, Proverbs 22, 6-8 says the borrower is a slave to the lender. So all these schemes, what you call globalistic schemes, are all designed to make the citizens, the country, a slave to the unelected bureaucrats either in Europe or wherever. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, so to speak, but I just want to discuss Senator Rennick's video. I forget what date it was, very recent, and it'll be I'll put it in the chat so that you can reference this, and I'll mention something else before I finish. Now, as Senator Rennick said, there's three major issues, two that I'm going to focus on. One is the cost of living. Okay, we can, everyone knows the cost of living's gone up and everything, but why? Why has it gone up? And one of the major reasons is what Senator Rennick briefly explains, and I've got some understanding of this because I've looked at the whole global situation since about 1985 or so. So I was aware of this, and then Senator Rennick's he's just got all the facts memorized because he's onto it all the time, and it sparked my memory again. So now, there's two major things that Senator Rennick mentions, which is critically important to bear in mind going into this election about making Australia great again. In other words, turning Australia cash flow positive. Now, number one is company tax. Now, the thing is at the moment, and I'm just reading off my notes there, companies can get lower tax offshore. So in other words, if they make money in this country, they transport it offshore so they don't pay much tax, and then they bring it back here through their system. Senator Rennick knows the full way because he's fully versed in all the accountancy sort of stuff. So his solution is increase the tax threshold for big companies in this country so it isn't profitable for them to take their profits offshore. They're going to get less if they go offshore and more if we keep the profits in Australia. Now, I remember looking at this in the 2019 election. You're looking at billions of dollars, I think at the time I was looking at in 2019, I think, the mobile phones and what have you. I think it was it not Microsoft, but Android or the other mobile phone company, they're making something like $9 billion, paid zero tax, shifted it offshore. So we're missing out. The citizens of Australia are missing out while all these multinational companies rape, pillage and plunder basically and make huge profits, pay no tax here. That's the deal. So that's got to stop to benefit Australia's citizens. So listen to the video by Senator Rennick and go onto his website. Now, the other thing that really I want you to focus on this. In 1985, I can remember back that far, 1985, Paul Keating lifted capital control. Lifted capital control. What does that mean? It means that at that time, the four major banks owed about $8 billion in foreign debt, right? So borrowing monies from the global banking cartels, I suppose, is the best way to put it. And within a very short period of time to 2008, these banks now owe 800 billion, 100 times more. Now that was in, I've worked it out, that's in 23 years from 1985, Paul Keating's era, suddenly removed capital controls on the banks and what have you. And suddenly they increased their debt dramatically, borrowed from the foreign cartels and what have you, and multiplied their debt by 100 times. Now, how does that relate back to the Australian citizen? Well, how it relates back to you and me and everyone else is in house prices. See, the sleight of hand, I mean, even in the Howard era, without going into it, this is what they did. They shifted the debt into housing prices. Now, the house price about 1985, according to Senator Rennick, which I think is roughly correct, or he's probably exactly correct, was about 4 times the annual income. So, you know, if you earned 30,000 a year, the house would be about 100,000, right? Now, today, the increase is 13 times more than your annual income. So it's gone from 4 times more to 13 times more. I mean, you can't buy a house in Brisbane for under $1 million. Now, who earns $1 million that you know of, unless there's some elite judge or lawyer or some professional who's, and even if they do, if they're paying a mortgage, it'll be about $1,000 a week or something like that. So therefore, what happened then was that it created the necessity for 2 people to go to work. One had to pay the mortgage. So that debt, real sleight of hand actually, that debt that the banks accumulated went into loans where they would give you the new home buyer's bribe, remember? So they want to get you into debt for 25 or 30 years, and then your wife or, or whatever partner's work, or both of you will be working, one of the partners will be paying off the house debt for the next 25 years. So it's called debt slavery. Now, if you want to control people, as Senator Rennick said, is absolutely correct, you control them through debt. It's a far more efficient way to control people than any government can come up with any regulation. Whatever you're controlled by debt, you're a debt slave, and that's it, end of story. So Senator Rennick's got a solution for that. And, go onto his website and listen to the video that I've got posted here. But that's the long and short of it. Where did the inflation go? Where did the increase in prices go? And all this debt that the banks accumulated from 8 billion to 800 billion, 100 times more. They shifted it into the house prices. They just slide a hand. Okay, we got the debt. We'll give you the debt. So now that resulted in 2 people working, and it created the childcare so-called business. So you had to get the kids looked after because 2 people had to work. And they'll go on about productivity and all the rest of it. The thing at the underlying principle behind it is that they put you into serious debt through the overinflated prices, 13 to 14 times more house price just escalated astronomically. So that's that one by Senator Rennick. Please listen to that video a couple of times, because it's very relevant in what's happened over the last 25 years. And it's, both parties, both Liberal and Labor, have done the same thing, basically. And even when even when Howard was in, I can remember him pushing the new home buyers loans, or flogged them to death. So they made certain everyone signed up for 25 to 30 years and both people are working and all the rest of it. The reality is the fundamentals were all wrong. So who's the person, in my opinion, that knows the financial fundamentals to correct them is Senator Rennick, of course. But he's one of the senators. I'm not saying that he's the only senator that can contribute, but he's certainly got the financial plan worked out very well. Now, there's one other thing I'll quickly mention. This Ukraine thing. Now, I'm not promoting Russia or anything like that, but the trouble is most people, I stand for Ukraine or whatever. They don't understand the history, and you've got to be very careful how you're being manipulated. And I'll just say this. The whole Ukraine thing is all about the NATO, right? Agreements that were broken with Russia regarding NATO, and then Europe, NATO, European Union, whatever. But NATO's the main pivot point, really. So NATO, and I'm not going to go into the detail. I'll put another video there by Robert Kennedy Jr., who explains it extremely well. And then I think there's another senator who does the same thing. But over time, all these peace agreements that were actually made with Russia were broken for the purpose of no more than warmongering. So, Russia's not totally innocent, but then the US at that time isn't either. So, you've got to remember that the current administration in the US, i.e. Donald Trump, who I'm a fan of Donald Trump's, of course, his objective is peace. You notice that Zelensky's objective wasn't peace. He went straight over to the UK, straight over to the European Unions and what have you, trying to recruit more funding. Their objective is to keep the war going. He doesn't care about his people being killed everywhere. They want to keep the war going. And the reason? The machine behind it, the war machine behind it, the military complex, BlackRock, etc., they're all making money out of it. Even Monsanto and the agricultural companies in the US are making big money out of it, because Ukraine's the breadbasket of the whole of Europe there, with all its wheat, supplies wheat for the whole of Europe, basically, and precious minerals and all that. So, just like it was in the Middle East, remember the weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist? They had to go in and spend 10 years in a big war. Well, why was that? Because it was all about oil and gas, wasn't it? So in this case, with NATO, and I believe Trump's going to pull out of NATO, and so he should. Their objective is to keep wars going, basically. At the end of the day, they had an honourable objective after World War II, but now they've been used by the military complex. Like, for instance, I think, from what I understand, and you can listen to the video by Robert Kennedy Jr., once this whole conflict started, way back when the deal with Russia was that they weren't going to put NATO missiles right on its border. And now they did exactly, they made agreements and they broke them, and then basically caused the conflict. I mean, I can't justify Russia, but I'm not justifying the US either at that particular point in time. Now, Trump comes along and he says, okay, we're going to broker a peace deal. Trump knows he could stop that war tomorrow. And so he's given the old Zelensky the option. Zelensky's run off to all the lefties over in the UK, and they're all war. it's all about money. It's all about money. So they won't win. Zelensky, I think he'll get replaced one way or the other. Trump will win the peace thing because, you know, at the end of the day, you're trying to get peace there. But understanding the full background of it, and I didn't really understand it till I listened to Robert Kennedy Jr. I think there's another guy who's a professor. He was a senator or something to do in the US government. He's got the real oil in it. I'll post those videos in the chat. Then you can get up to speed with that. So whichever way we look at it, the world is changing rapidly. And this election coming up is not going to be the normal sort of election. It'll be a hung parliament. And what we've got to do is get the independent senators like Senator Rennick, Senator Roberts, and other senators, you know, from Trumpeter Patriots Party and whatever, get those senators in so that you've got a controlling bloc that can basically stop the government from making stupid decisions like sending troops over to Ukraine to get killed for nothing and all this sort of stuff. So our focus should be to turn the economy of Australia around, to re-sovereigntize Australia, to take the lead that Trump's doing. He's actually making, like today, he came out and they're doing some, he's got some company from Taiwan that's doing the microchips or something for artificial intelligence. They're all starting and building these huge factories in the US. That's how you do it. You want to turn your country into a cash flow positive country. We don't need $9 trillion in debt, which has been created out of owing the global cartel, banking global cartel money by us borrowing money. That's the other issue that Senator Rennick's got on his website, which is very good. We'll create, and I think Senator Roberts has said this as well, create our own bank again. We used to have our own bank. We used to print our own money. We used to have our own gold reserves. We can do that again because we're a wealthy nation and we've just allowed what I call the multinationals to come in, the globalists to come in and control our assets by default because of basically, I suppose there's no other word for it, basically global communist style thinking, such as Albo and the Greens. This sort of thinking will erode your economy and you wind up in a very low common denominator. And just the other one that I think Clive Palmer mentioned was exactly correct. This one, I'll leave you with this. You know, you see, I'm not against immigration. You know, a lot of my friends are from Asian countries and what have you, Malaysia and Vietnam and what have you. But the reason why both sides of government, more so Labor, but certainly Liberal have done the same thing, why they've imported people into the country en masse in some unreal numbers at the moment is to simply balance up the GDP falsely. You see, they're not creating infrastructure. They're not creating more houses. They're just cramming people in who are buying goods, and then that's all. Everything's going all right. And then they don't include in their accounting methodology for the gross domestic products, and that they don't count electricity, they don't count fuel, they don't count the price of alcohol or anything. So electricity and fuel they don't count. So that automatically brings the goods and services prices down because they're playing with the figures all the time. The reality is we have to, as Dr. Rennick says, as Senator Roberts, as Clive Palmer says, we've got to re-sovereigntize this country. We've got to do what Trump's doing. Trump is making America profitable again. You can say making America great again, making it profitable again. And that's what we've got to do in Australia. And I believe by getting 10 good senators into the Senate, we can do that. Now, those videos, click on the links below. Listen to the one by Robert Kennedy Jr. regarding Ukraine. You'll be enlightened like I was. Then also click on the one from Senator Rennick. And he's got the oil on financial He's got all the details regarding finances and how to turn the economy of Australia around. You'll be enlightened. Okay, that's Graham Healy over and out. Have a great day. And as time goes on, I'll just upload. See, I'm a bottom line person. I just want to know, okay, what's the truth? 1, 2, 3, 4. Less than bullet points. I don't want to hear any BS, basically. So, okay, have a great day. Graham Healy over and out.